The year was 2249, and humanity had long since left the confines of Earth. Space exploration had become as routine as commuting to work, but Captain Elias Kane wasn't one for routines. A seasoned explorer with a reputation for taking risks, Elias led the crew of the starship *EOS*, a small yet advanced vessel tasked with mapping uncharted regions of space. His team consisted of 5 members. Dr. Lyra Chen, the brilliant xenobiologist. Commander Ria Voss, his no-nonsense second-in-command. Engineer Jace Torin, the ship's tech wizard. Pilot Mira Solis, whose reflexes were unmatched. And medic Arlo Quinn, who kept everyone patched up when things went wrong, which they often did. On their latest mission, the *EOS* drifted near an unexplored sector of the galaxy, dominated by a dying red star. The readings from their scanners showed something unusual, a massive structure orbiting the star. It wasn't natural. The object shimmered like crystal, its surface reflecting faint hues of blue and green. As they approached, it became clear that this wasn't just debris or a derelict satellite. This was a hive, alive and humming with energy. "Looks like we got company," muttered Commander Voss, her voice tense as she studied the monitor. The hive bristled with activity. Strange insectoid creatures scurried along its outer edges, their exoskeletons glinting under the dim light of the dying star. They looked mechanical, yet organic, part machine, part creature. It was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Elias leaned forward in his chair, his sharp eyes scanning the scene. "Let's take a closer look," he said, ignoring the wary glances exchanged between his crewmates. He knew the dangers. They all did, but curiosity outweighed caution. The hive radiated an aura of mystery, pulling him in like a magnet. As the *EOS* drew nearer, disaster struck without warning. Dozens of the insectoids launched themselves at the ship, their metallic wings buzzing furiously. The hull shuddered under their assault, alarms blaring throughout the vessel. "They're trying to breach us," shouted Jace, frantically working the controls to reinforce the shields. "We can't stay here," yelled Mira, gripping the helm tightly. "We need to retreat." But Elias didn't move. His gaze was fixed on the hive's entrance, where a towering figure now stood watching them. It was the alien queen, her elongated form draped in iridescent armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, piercing through the chaos around her. She was magnificent and terrifying. Then something strange happened. The queen froze, her movements halting abruptly as her glowing eyes locked onto Elias. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The drones attacking the ship paused mid-flight, hovering silently as if awaiting orders. The queen tilted her head slightly, staring at Elias with an expression that could only be described as shock. "What is she doing?" whispered Dr. Chen, her voice barely audible over the din. No one answered. Everyone aboard the *EOS* was too stunned to speak. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about the way the queen looked at him, as if she recognized him, though they'd never met before. He couldn't explain it, but the sensation was overwhelming. It was as if her gaze reached into the very core of his being, stirring memories he didn't know he had. Before anyone could react further, the queen snapped out of her trance. With a wave of her clawed hand, she signaled her drones to retreat. They obeyed instantly, vanishing back into the hive as quickly as they'd appeared. The attack ended as suddenly as it began, leaving the crew bewildered and shaken. "Well," said Commander Voss, breaking the silence, "that was unexpected." Elias didn't respond. His mind raced with questions. Why had the queen frozen when she saw him? What did she know that he didn't? And most importantly, what secrets lay hidden within that alien hive? For now, the answers would have to wait. But Elias knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth. Back aboard the *EOS*, the crew gathered in the ship's dimly lit briefing room, their faces pale with exhaustion and unease. The attack by the alien drones had left them rattled, but it was the alien queen's reaction to Elias that dominated their thoughts. None of them could shake the image of her freezing mid-motion, her glowing eyes locked onto him as if he were some kind of ghost from her past. "What just happened out there?" Commander Voss demanded, slamming her fist on the table. Her voice echoed through the small room, cutting through the tense silence. "She looked at you like she'd seen a ghost, Kane." Elias sat quietly, his elbows resting on the table, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. He didn't answer immediately. His mind was still replaying the moment. The way the Queen's gaze had pierced through him, stirring emotions and memories he couldn't explain. It wasn't fear or anger. It was something deeper, almost familiar. "I don't know," he finally admitted, his voice low but steady. "But whatever it wasn't random. She recognized me, or at least she thought she did." Dr. Lyra Chen leaned forward, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied Elias. "That doesn't make sense. You've never encountered these aliens before, have you?" "No," Elias replied firmly. "At least, not that I remember." "Well, maybe your memory needs a closer look," Jace interjected, tapping away at his tablet. "I pulled up some scans of the hive during the attack. There's something odd about its structure. It's emitting electromagnetic pulses that match human brainwave patterns, almost like it's alive or conscious." The room fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. The idea of an alien hive being sentient was unsettling enough, but the implications went deeper. If the hive could mimic brain activity, what else might it be capable of? Could it somehow tap into Elias' mind? "Wait a second," Mira said suddenly, her brow furrowing. "If the hive is connected to brainwaves, maybe that's why the Queen reacted to you. Maybe she saw something in your head, something we can't see." Elias frowned, rubbing his temples. He hadn't mentioned the strange dreams he'd been having since the encounter. They came in flashes, visions of ancient battles fought under foreign stars, rituals performed in cavernous halls, and a haunting melody that seemed to echo endlessly in his mind. At first, he dismissed them as stress-induced hallucinations, but now he wasn't so sure. "Let's say you're right," Commander Voss cut in, breaking the spell of speculation. "What does any of this have to do with us? We're explorers, not diplomats. Our job is to report back to HQ, not get tangled up in alien mysteries, and leave things as they are." Elias shot back, his tone sharper than usual. "We stumbled onto something big out there. Something important. Do you really think walking away is the right move?" Voss opened her mouth to argue, but Dr. Chen interrupted. "He's right. This isn't just about us anymore. That hive holds answers. About them, and maybe even about us. If Elias triggered a reaction from the Queen, there has to be a reason. And I don't think we'll find it sitting here." Her words hung heavy in the air. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, each grappling with their own fears and doubts. Finally, Elias stood up, his decision made. "I'm going back." "What? Alone?" Voss exclaimed, incredulous. "Are you insane?" "I'll take stealth gear and go in undetected," Elias explained calmly. "If the Queen freezes again when she sees me, maybe I can figure out why. Besides, sending all of us risks another attack. This way, only one of us is in danger." "You mean asterisk you asterisk," Jace muttered under his breath, though no one argued further. They knew Elias well enough to realize he wouldn't back down once his mind was set. As the meeting adjourned, Elias retreated to his quarters, staring out the viewport at the distant hive. Its crystalline surface shimmered faintly against the backdrop of space, beckoning him closer. He felt a pull toward it, stronger than curiosity, a sense of destiny he couldn't ignore. Whatever secrets lay hidden within that alien structure, Elias knew one thing for certain. They were tied to him, and he intended to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Elias stepped out of the airlock, clad in a sleek suit of stolen drone armor salvaged from the earlier attack. The metallic exoskeleton clung tightly to his body, its surface etched with alien markings that shimmered faintly under the dim light of the dying star. It wasn't perfect camouflage, but it would have to do. His plan was risky, sneaking into the hive alone. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was meant for him and him alone. As he approached the massive crystalline structure, Elias felt a strange hum vibrating through his bones. The hive seemed alive, pulsating with energy as if it were breathing. Every step closer sent shivers down his spine, yet he pressed on, driven by an unexplainable pull. He glanced back once at the *Eos*, now a distant speck against the void of space, before stepping into the shadow of the alien monolith. The entrance loomed ahead, a jagged archway framed by glowing tendrils that shifted like liquid fire. As Elias crossed the threshold, the world around him transformed. The walls weren't solid. They rippled and flowed like water frozen in motion, their surfaces adorned with intricate patterns that glowed softly in shades of blue and green. Bioluminescent symbols flickered along the corridor, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. It was as though the hive itself was responding to his presence. "This place is alive," Elias muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the soft hum filling the air. He reached out tentatively, touching one of the walls. It felt warm beneath his gloved hand, almost inviting. But there was something else too, a faint whisper, like voices speaking in a language he didn't understand. Yet, strangely, he could sense meaning behind the words, fragments of emotions and images flashing in his mind. He pressed onward, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with cautious determination. The deeper he ventured, the more surreal the environment became. Gravity seemed to shift unpredictably, forcing him to adapt to tilted floors and floating platforms. At one point, he passed through a chamber filled with floating orbs of light, each emitting a low, melodic tone that resonated within him. The melody matched the haunting tune from his dreams, sending chills down his spine. Despite the eerie beauty surrounding him, Elias remained alert. Shadows darted across his peripheral vision, alien drones patrolling the halls. But none paid him any attention. The stolen armor worked perfectly, masking his human form. Still, every creak of metal or flicker of movement made his heart race. One wrong move, and he'd be discovered. Finally, after what felt like hours, Elias reached the heart of the hive. A grand chamber stretched before him, its ceiling lost in darkness above. In the center stood the alien queen atop a throne made of organic material, its surface glistening like polished obsidian. She was even more imposing up close, her elongated frame towering over the room, her armored body radiating power and grace. When she saw him, she froze once again, her glowing eyes widening in shock, or perhaps recognition. This time, however, she didn't retreat. Instead, she rose slowly from her throne, her movements deliberate and measured. Her gaze bore into Elias, pinning him in place as though weighing his very soul. Before Elias could react, the chamber sealed shut behind him, trapping him inside. Panic surged through him, but then the queen spoke, not with words, but directly into his mind. Her voice was both commanding and desperate, echoing with centuries of knowledge and sorrow. "You shouldn't exist." The words reverberated through Elias' thoughts, leaving him stunned. What did she mean? And why did her presence feel so familiar? Whatever answers lay ahead, Elias knew one thing for certain. The truth was far bigger than he'd imagined. The chamber was eerily silent except for the faint hum of energy coursing through the hive. Elias stood frozen, his mind reeling from the queen's telepathic message. "You shouldn't exist." The words echoed in his thoughts, heavy with meaning he couldn't yet grasp. He stared at her, searching for answers in her glowing eyes, but all he found was a mixture of fear and awe. "Explain," Elias finally said aloud, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "What do you mean?" The queen didn't respond immediately. Instead, She extended one clawed hand toward him, her movements slow and deliberate. A shimmering hologram materialized between them, a swirling mass of light and shadow that resolved into images of ancient worlds, alien civilizations, and cosmic battles fought among stars. It was as if the hive itself had become a storyteller, weaving fragments of history directly into Elias' mind. Through the visions, Elias learned about the Queen species, an advanced race of explorers who once roamed the galaxy in search of knowledge. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They sought only to understand the universe and its mysteries. But during one fateful expedition, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, a primordial force known as the Singularity Seed. The seed was no ordinary artifact. It wasn't just powerful. It was alive, capable of rewriting reality itself. Entire galaxies could be reshaped by its will. Fearing its destructive potential, the aliens decided to seal it away in a hidden dimension, using their collective consciousness to act as guardians. Over millennia, however, the strain of maintaining this vigil took its toll. Many of their kind perished, their minds fractured by the seed's overwhelming energy. Those who remained became isolated, retreating into hives like this one to preserve what little strength they had left. As the visions continued, Elias saw glimpses of a lone figure, a being unlike any other. This individual, referred to as the Keeper, was chosen to safeguard the seed after the rest of the species fell into decline. The Keeper bore markings on their skin that glowed with the same energy now emanating from the hive. And then it hit Elias. The markings looked eerily similar to the scars running along his own arms, scars he'd always assumed were from childhood accidents. The Queen paused, her gaze softening slightly. "You carry the essence of the Keeper within you," she said, her voice resonating in his mind. "Your DNA, it is not entirely human. You were engineered, shaped by remnants of our legacy." Elias staggered back, struggling to process what he was hearing. "That's impossible," he whispered, shaking his head. "I'm human. I've always been." "No," the Queen interrupted sharply. "Your ancestors discovered traces of the Keeper's genetic code, embedded in stardust scattered across your solar system. They used it to create you, unknowingly binding you to a destiny older than your civilization." Memories flooded Elias' mind, visions of his childhood, moments he hadn't thought about in years, his fascination with astronomy, his uncanny ability to solve complex equations, even the recurring dreams of alien rituals and haunting melodies. They weren't coincidences. They were echoes of the past, fragments of the Keeper's consciousness buried deep within him. The Queen stepped closer, her towering form casting a shadow over him. "The seed has begun destabilizing," she explained, urgency creeping into her tone. "If it is not stabilized soon, it will unravel the fabric of existence. Only someone carrying the Keeper's essence can merge with the seed and restore balance. But doing so requires sacrifice. You would cease to exist as you are now." Elias clenched his fists, torn between disbelief and determination. Sacrifice himself, for a cause he barely understood. Yet as he gazed into the Queen's eyes, he felt an undeniable truth. This was why he'd been drawn to the stars, why he'd risked everything to explore the unknown. This was his purpose. But before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled violently. The hive shuddered, and a deafening roar filled the chamber. The seed's instability was growing worse, and time was running out. The tremors grew stronger, shaking the chamber violently as cracks began to form along the crystalline walls. Bioluminescent symbols flickered erratically, their soft glow replaced by harsh flashes of red light. The hive was unraveling, its structure destabilizing under the weight of the Singularity Seed's growing chaos. The alien Queen staggered back, her claws gripping the edge of her obsidian throne for support. Her glowing eyes darted toward Elias, filled with desperation. "You must decide quickly," she urged, her telepathic voice strained but insistent. "If the seed collapses, it will consume everything. Your world, mine, every galaxy touched by its energy. Elias clenched his jaw, his mind racing. He had come here seeking answers, not to make a choice that could cost him his life. Yet deep down, he knew there was no turning back. This was bigger than him, bigger than humanity itself. But before he could respond, the chamber doors burst open with a deafening crash. Commander Rhea Voss stormed in, followed closely by Engineer Jace Torin. Both wore combat gear and carried plasma rifles, their expressions grim and determined. They hadn't trusted Elias to handle this alone. And now, they were ready to intervene. "What are you doing here?" Elias demanded, his voice sharp with anger and disbelief. "I told you to stay on the ship." "We're not leaving without you," Voss shot back, her rifle trained cautiously on the alien crane. "Whatever she's telling you, it's a trap. These aliens can't be trusted." The Queen let out a low growl, her body tensing as if preparing to strike. "They do not understand," she said directly into Elias' mind, ignoring the intruders. "You are the only one who can save us all." "Save us?" Voss spat, stepping forward. "This thing is manipulating you, Kane. Can't you see that? She wants you to sacrifice yourself for her cause, for her survival." Elias hesitated, torn between loyalty to his crew and the Queen's plea. Before anyone could act further, the situation escalated. One of the alien drones guarding the chamber swooped down, its metallic wings slicing through the air. Voss reacted instantly, firing her weapon. The blast struck the drone, sending it spiraling into the wall, but the attack triggered an alarm. More drones poured into the chamber, their glowing eyes locking onto the invaders. Chaos erupted. Laser fire filled the air as Voss and Jace fought back against the swarm, dodging attacks while trying to protect Elias. The Queen roared furiously, unleashing waves of energy that sent several drones crashing to the ground. But even with her help, the odds were overwhelming. "Jace, get behind me," Elias shouted, grabbing a fallen piece of debris to shield himself from incoming fire. His heart pounded as he watched his crewmates struggle. They were outnumbered, outmatched, and running out of time. Then tragedy struck. A drone lunged at Jace, its claws aimed straight for his chest. Without hesitation, Jace shoved Elias out of the way, taking the full force of the attack. He collapsed to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. "No," Elias screamed, rushing to his side. Jace coughed weakly, managing a faint smile despite the pain. "Go, finish it," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Don't let them die for nothing." Tears welled up in Elias' eyes as he looked at his fallen friend. Anger surged within him, but so did resolve. Rising to his feet, he turned to face the Queen, who stood amidst the chaos, her expression unreadable. "I'll do it," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. "But I'm doing it for everyone, not just you." The Queen nodded solemnly, gesturing toward a glowing vortex at the center of the chamber. It pulsed with raw energy, drawing Elias closer like a magnet. Behind him, Voss shouted protests, but he ignored her. Taking a deep breath, Elias stepped into the vortex, feeling its power envelop him completely. As the seed's energy merged with his consciousness, the hive stabilized, and the battle came to an abrupt halt. The drones retreated, and the Queen sank to her knees, watching silently as Elias vanished into the light. Sacrifices had been made, but the universe was safe for now. The moment Elias stepped into the vortex, his world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. The raw energy of the singularity seed surged through him, overwhelming his senses yet strangely familiar, as though it had been waiting for him all along. He felt his consciousness expand beyond the limits of his human body, stretching across galaxies, touching stars, and brushing against the edges of creation itself. At first, there was pain, an unbearable pressure that threatened to tear him apart. But as the initial shock subsided, clarity emerged. Memories flooded back, not just his own, but those of the Keeper whose essence he carried. He saw ancient civilizations rise and fall, witnessed cosmic events that shaped the universe, and understood the delicate balance holding existence together. Each memory came with a surge of emotion, awe at the beauty of creation, sorrow for what had been lost, and responsibility for what lay ahead. Through this newfound awareness, Elias realized the truth about the seed. It wasn't simply a force of destruction. It was a living archive, preserving the collective knowledge and experiences of countless species. However, its power was too immense for any one being to control without consequences. That's why the keeper had sacrificed themselves eons ago, becoming part of the seed to stabilize it. Now, Elias faced the same choice. As he embraced his role, the chaos within the hive began to subside. The trembling stopped, the glowing symbols returned to their steady rhythm, and the drones withdrew to their nests. Outside the chamber, Commander Voss stared in disbelief as the hostile environment transformed into something calm and serene. She rushed toward the vortex, calling out Elias' name, but her voice faded into silence. There was no response, only the faint hum of energy pulsing through the hive. When the transformation was complete, Elias opened his eyes, or rather, he perceived the world anew. He no longer existed as a physical being. Instead, he had become one with the seed, his consciousness intertwined with its infinite energy. Yet fragments of his humanity remained, anchoring him to the emotions and values that defined him. In this hybrid state, he retained the ability to influence the hive, guiding its actions toward peace rather than aggression. Back aboard the *EOS*, Voss and the surviving crew mourned Elias' loss. They didn't know what had happened inside the hive, only that the alien threat had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. As they prepared to leave orbit, strange occurrences began happening aboard the ship, equipment malfunctioning, and then correcting itself, cryptic symbols appearing on monitors, even whispers echoing in empty corridors. At first, the crew dismissed these incidents as stress or fatigue, but deep down, they couldn't shake the feeling that Elias was still with them, watching over them in some inexplicable way. Meanwhile, the alien queen gazed skyward from her throne, her glowing eyes reflecting both relief and sorrow. She knew Elias had fulfilled his destiny, but she also understood the cost. Her species had gambled everything on the hope that someone like him would come along. And now, thanks to his sacrifice, they might finally have a chance to rebuild. But the queen wasn't naive. She recognized that the stability provided by Elias merging with the seed was temporary. The cycle of guardianship would continue, passing from one keeper to the next until the universe reached its inevitable end. For now, though, there was peace, and perhaps that was enough. As the *EOS* drifted away from the crystalline hive, Elias' presence lingered not just among his crew, but throughout the cosmos. Though he was gone, his legacy endured. A bridge between worlds, a guardian of the stars, and a reminder that even in the vastness of space, every action mattered. And so, the story of Elias Kane became legend, whispered among humans and aliens alike. A tale of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring bond between life forms across the galaxy. The *EOS* drifted silently through the void of space, its engines humming faintly as it carried the surviving crew back toward familiar territory. But aboard the ship, nothing felt normal anymore. The absence of Elias Kane weighed heavily on everyone, yet his presence lingered in ways they couldn't explain. Equipment that had been damaged during their encounter with the hive mysteriously repaired itself overnight. Monitors displayed cryptic symbols that vanished moments later, leaving no trace behind. And sometimes, late at night when the crew was alone, they swore they heard a voice, soft, distant, and unmistakably Elias. Commander Rhea Voss refused to believe it at first. "It's just stress," she muttered one evening, pacing the bridge while rubbing her temples. "We've all been through hell. Our minds are playing tricks on us." But even she couldn't deny the strange occurrences forever. One day, while reviewing logs from their mission, she noticed something peculiar, a sequence of numbers encoded in the data stream. It wasn't random. It formed coordinates pointing to a region of space far beyond their current location. When she brought it up with Dr. Lyra Chen, the xenobiologist frowned thoughtfully. "It's almost like someone is trying to communicate," Lyra said slowly. "Or guide us." "Guide us where?" Voss snapped, throwing her hands up in frustration. "To another alien death trap. I've had enough of this nonsense." Yet despite her protests, curiosity gnawed at her. Against her better judgment, she ordered the ship to follow the coordinates. As they approached the destination, the crew discovered a small, unassuming asteroid floating in the darkness. Its surface shimmered faintly, reminiscent of the crystalline hive they'd left behind. When they landed and ventured outside, they found a single structure carved into the rock, an archway identical to the entrance of the hive. Carved into its frame were glowing symbols that pulsed in sync with their heartbeats. At the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a small crystalline shard radiating soft blue light. "What is this place?" Pilot Mira Solis whispered, her voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, the shard flared brightly, projecting an image into the air. It was Elias, or at least a version of him. His form appeared translucent, composed entirely of light, but his expression was calm and reassuring. "I'm still here," he said softly, his voice echoing in their minds rather than their ears. "Not as you knew me, but as part of something greater. This shard contains fragments of the seed's energy. It's a gift, a way for me to stay connected to you. Use it wisely." No one spoke for a long moment. Tears welled up in Medic Arlo Quinn's eyes, while Jace Torin, who had barely recovered from his injuries, clenched his fists tightly. "You gave everything," Jace finally managed, his voice choked with emotion. "Why?" "Because it was necessary," Elias replied simply, "and because I believed in what we could achieve together. Not just humans, but all life forms. You're stronger than you think. Trust each other and trust yourselves." With those words, his projection faded, leaving the crew standing in stunned silence. They didn't fully understand what had happened or why Elias had chosen this path, but one thing was clear: his sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He had become more than just a man. He was now a guardian, a beacon of hope spanning galaxies. Back on the Queen's hive, the alien standing atop her throne, the alien queen gazed upward, her glowing eyes reflecting the infinite expanse of stars. She whispered a phrase in her native tongue, a sentiment passed down through generations of her kind. The cycle continues. Far away, aboard the *Eos*, the shard pulsed gently in its resting place, a reminder of Elias' legacy and the bond between humanity and the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the crew knew they wouldn't face them alone. Elias was out there, watching, guiding, and protecting. And so, the universe carried on, shaped by the courage of those who dared to reach beyond themselves.